All right, and let's go across to my colleague Jessica Taneja, who's joining us live from Tianjin, China. Hi, Jessica. What are the key takeaways from PM Modi's China visit, and how important was this summit from India's perspective?
Well, if you look at the outcomes of the declaration of the SCO, it certainly is important, and India has been able to make sure that the condemnation for the terrorist attack in Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir is mentioned, something that it was wanting to have earlier as well. When you recall, the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh was in China for the SCO Defense Ministers meeting, and they refused to sign it back then, making sure that the world understands India's point, and specifically pointing to a country that has been allowing terror havens not just now, but for many, many years now. And this important messaging had to be put out that if the SCO framework is built on combating terrorism, so it certainly would have to make sure that condemnation of the hideous terrorist act by a state sponsor, of terrorism certainly has to be put into the limelight. And it did find mention in the declaration among other mentions of terrorist attacks in the countries that are members of the SCO. So important to highlight there that this entire engagement of sorts with the other leaders of the SCO or their observers or the dialogue partners, you see Prime Minister's engagements. He met with the Kazakh president, the Kyrgyz president, the Uzbek president, the Belarusian president. I can go on and name all the members and observers, but it's been quite a productive time for India's diplomacy here in China, not only limited to how diversification of trade or looking into the concerns of trade deficit with China, and of course Russia, an important partner when it comes to energy as well as trade. So the other countries with whom the connectivity part of it was also mentioned, and of course opportunities further to see how India can collaborate and diversify its trade, given the kind of geo-economic environment we're in and the uncertainties that surround it.
Definitely. Jessica, what could you tell us about PM Modi and President Putin's meet? What signal does it give as far as India-Russia ties are concerned in your assessment?
Well, you heard from the Prime Minister, Russian President Vladimir Putin will be here in New Delhi. Will be here in New Delhi in December later this year. And that, of course, is an interesting element to be discussed, because there has been an annual summit between India and Russia for a very long time. Last year it was in Moscow. This year it was expected to be in New Delhi, now that the confirmation is coming. And that particular mechanism, that bilateral mechanism, stays no matter what the world may witness right now. And that has been in continuance for many, many years. Not many of these bilateral summits have been missed in the past 1 year. So it goes on to show that this relationship is strengthened based on both the country's strategic needs as well as their own trade alignments. So certainly a step further in the direction between India and Russia continues to be stable, and Prime Minister made sure to mention that they also discussed Ukraine and how to achieve peace. And this is not an era of war, which is what the Prime Minister had said at the SCO summit in Samarkand, if you'd recall, a few years ago. So interesting elements and outcomes there, even with the meeting. And you saw how both the leaders were in the same car going for the meeting. And we've had some interesting and refreshing visuals coming out of China, not limited to the India-China partial rapprochement, but also meeting with old partners and countries with whom there is more connect than just trade and connectivity.
You're right, Jessica. Jessica, now, from the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping, and also a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Vladimir Putin, and also Prime Minister Modi's remarks in the SCO summit, how do you analyze this entire visit, and what's next for India from here?
Well, India's messaging has been quite stern in a sense, where the discussion, if there has to be a discussion on counter-terrorism and how to combat the extremist elements in order to make sure that it has been at the receiving end of terrorist activities for a very long time, and cross-border terrorism is a major concern, especially when you had another member state called Pakistan present at the SCO, you could see a certain sense of isolation for the Pakistani Prime Minister. Even if you look at I looked at the papers this morning, I looked at China Daily in the morning, and the whole front page headline was about the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi, and there's just a small little mention in the corner. These kind of optics do go on to tell you that how important a relationship it is with India, despite its tensions here and there. It has been. It is our neighbor and our strategic. It is our partner. In a country with whom we do maximum trade. I mean, it's about $100 billion deficit and $150 billion trade with the country. So, of course, an important partner there, but making sure that all aspects of that relationship are covered, and certainly also putting out that point that differences should not become disputes. With the entire messaging, if you see, of India and from the Prime Minister's address, you'd be able to understand that India respects sovereignty, not just or not just of what India puts forth, but also other nations and how they engage with the world and what kind of security concerns do each one of them have. You look at the interactions with the Prime Minister had, and it does seem to be pretty evident on how this entire multilateral engagement, or the largest multilateral gathering, as they say, because when we were at the SCO, we've never seen a bigger media contingent apart from that. So there was a lot of keenness involved, and the messaging to the right people at the right time is what was important.
Definitely, and a strong message also goes out to the Western world, Jessica, isn't it? But anyway, wonderful and brief reporting. Thank you so much. We leave it there as of now.